that I think they're great and they're doing some good work. On the other hand, sometimes I interview somebody that I don't agree with, and people don't realize this at all. It's fascinating. But at any rate, not to digress, I just want to say that, you're right on, and it's fascinating because I know you have the background to be able to talk about this, and so please continue.
Well, we are getting a lot of information, but the information doesn't mean, let's talk about the information directly. The BP disaster and evacuations, for example, this is just one of the topics, but I've been tracking this person for over a decade, by the way. And this BP disaster is the specific one that I'm talking about. And there had been some information, and I even interviewed Greg Evenson, and he's a good man. And I think he's really trying to make a difference. He has a background, of course. He was several different kinds of law enforcement. He was highway patrol. He was a sheriff. He's educated in all kinds of law enforcement, and including Secret Service. But the source of the information that is bringing us 40 to 50 million people being evacuated has come from one source. It has not been able to be verified. When I was one of the things that was most adamant about what Frank taught me is that I had to, before you became, unless it's first-hand information and you're collecting and knowing what's going on, you don't act on it. You have to get it verified by 3 different directions from 3 different people that are not connected and talking to each other. In other words, I wouldn't want to talk to somebody that all talk to the same source. They would all 3 give me the same bits of information. So now we're getting, and on the Internet it's so connected and so convoluted that a lot of times it's hard to find out what source it is that we're getting our 40 to 50 million people being evacuated, right?
Well, yeah. Let me interject here that this is also a tactic that we use at Project Camelot. We triangulate this source, and that's one of the best ways of verifying a source, because a witness is a witness, and there's not going to be a paper trail necessarily. And so the only thing you've got are information from unrelated sources who have not talked to the witness initially. And so if you get 3 verifications, then you have some kind of solid ground to which go forward. Isn't that what you're saying?
Right. It's kind of like if somebody tells you something and it's a topic about, let's say Bob Chapman has a source. He tells you it's from the Federal Reserve and that the money is going to collapse at XYZ time. And then you have Cliff Bott saying that he has indicators in his data set telling that there's going to be a financial collapse at XYZ, and it happens to be at the same time. Best you know, the data was derived from 2 different directions, if you see what I mean. So now you're having that confirmation process going on. It's not Bob Chapman telling you it's going to collapse because he read the WebBot report. And so so what you want is to bring about confirmation from 3 sources. Now let me give you an example of how, and I know I'm really getting into operational details here, and I don't really mean to, but I'm going to tell you one more thing here. You know, a lot of people say that 10% isn't all that big a deal. The likelihood of, something happening for, at 10% is not very high, right? Well, it depends on what we're talking about. You have to put that percentage of likelihood in certain categories. You won't even get to 10% very easily. So even at 10%, it may sound low, but it's hard to even get 10%. So let's give an example. If you have a forecast, a long time ago, as I grew up on a farm, my father used to get, inside and he'd watch the forecast. And in the forecast a long time ago, and it's probably dating me here, it's either going to rain or it's not going to rain. Tomorrow it's going to rain. And then he'd be wrong. It didn't. And the next day it's not going to rain. And then it'd rain and he'd be wrong. Well, the meteorologists and the news people started figuring out, gosh, what we're doing is we're looking at the odds of the possibility of rain, and it may say 70%, so we say it's going to rain. Why don't we just give them the information we've got? So I can remember the days when the newscasters started saying, there's a 60% chance of rain tomorrow, and my father went, why doesn't this guy make up his mind? This absolutely doesn't make any sense to me. Why would he tell me that there's a 60%? Why doesn't he just tell me if it's going to rain? See what I'm saying? Well, that's what the intelligence community uses. You can't have anything absolute until after it's over. There might be the likelihood of a nuclear bomb going off in Chicago, but it's not 100% till it's done. So we have to move forward on percentages of likelihood in order to figure out what to do. How important it is makes a difference. And let me give you, forecasting weather consequences aren't near as bad. Well, it could be, but not one day. So let's give an event here that makes it high. Let's say that you're in a room and there's no windows, doors, or anything, and you're at one end of the room, and across from you at the other end are 10 doors, and the wall behind you is moving, and it's pushing you toward those doors, okay? And all those doors are not locked. There's a door, you can't see through it. There's a doorknob, and you can open them. However, behind one of those doors is somebody with a gun, and they're going to shoot you and kill you when you go through. But if you don't leave the room, you're going to be smashed and die for sure. Now, what are you playing? You're playing Russian roulette and a 1 out of 10 chance of getting killed. And so now, you wouldn't anymore in your right mind put a bullet in a 10-chamber gun and spin that barrel and pull the trigger at your head for nothing. You'd have to be nuts. That's 10% chance.
Yeah, that's so one instance where it looks very serious and the stakes are high. And I get you. And, and it's great. It's a great analogy.
When we have a 10% chance of events that are catastrophic about to happen, we need to pay attention. Whenever we have a situation coming, we have to predict the likelihood of that information being accurate. Now, misinformation comes that way. What's the likelihood of that information being correct? So, with that said, everything is valued with some kind of shade, darker gray, lighter gray. It's not black and white until the event's over. The bomb doesn't have a 100% likelihood until it goes off. Now, if you find out that a bomb's loose, and Frank used to be part of NEST, it's called NEST. I don't know what anybody else wants to call it, but that's the Nuclear Emergency Survival Team. And there are people that, have chased down loose nukes, and they've been all over. I mean, nukes have been through Texas, and they've chased them down and found them, and there's been some lost and never found again. And Carrie, there was that event with the Dakota bomber that came down, and went down to guess where? Louisiana. Had all these nukes on them. What was going on? See, so they're not going to tell you what's going on. Well, in this situation, we have information saying that there are 40 to 50 million people being evacuated. Well, first of all, if you're hearing that, you just start adding up all the people. There's 5, 6 million or 8 million in Houston. Whoa, that's quite a bit of it. And you just start whipping around the coast and, you come up with a certain amount. Now, if this information is being given by a misinformation agent, who, by the way, happens to have a lot of government vehicles showing up at their house and other law enforcement people coming to their house,